Hello and welcome to the All In series. We're here to share the stories of people who have gone all in and pursued their dream of owning their own business. My name is Layla Gulen, and we're happy to be joined by Stuart Sikes, principal at Koala Insulation of Dallas. Well, welcome, Stuart. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Layla. Pleasure to be here.
So, first question for you: when and why did you start to consider owning your own business?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try to make short. I think all of my life I have been real interested in entrepreneurship and started my career working for AT&T. And after 4 or 5 years at a giant corporation like AT&T, I decided that I was finished with really big companies and that I wanted to work for smaller entrepreneurial companies where I would have an opportunity to really to wear a lot of hats, and to have a direct impact on the critical metrics. So from that point on, I did work for a number of small technology firms or smaller mid-sized firms, worked for a couple quite small firms here in Dallas, Texas, and helped those companies grow by 200 or 300%. And if you're familiar with the entrepreneur's operating system, where there's an integrator and a visionary, I found that I kept showing up at companies as the integrator, working for the visionary. I was a guy that would sort of put in the processes and procedures, manage people to sort of do the daily blocking and tackling. And the results were great growth. I was with a couple companies over a number of years that experienced great growth. But I continued to kind of get to a point where the relationship would need to end, and I had helped entrepreneurs make a lot of money, and at the end of the day, I was looking for a new thing to do, and decided that I had to get to a point in my life where I was a guy that was going to keep the retained earnings at the end of the day, and I also sort of set a time frame and said, I'm going to stop working for other people by the time I'm 60, because I'd like to spend my 60s, working with 1 or 2 or 3 small businesses and kind of on my terms if possible, and being able to travel and take time off, et cetera. So I got real serious when I was about 55 to find these things. And started looking at all different avenues, talking to lots of people, reading a lot of things, and talked to some franchise brokers that didn't really click. And one day I got a cold call from someone who kind of said the right things and said there was a guy named Rich that would be interested in just kind of talking to me about what my career objectives were, and kind of a low pressure approach to see if there was a potential fit. So just the way that this person approached me, I said, hey, sure, I'm interested.
Yeah.
And that started the process.
Was it a gradual transition though, because you went from AT&T to insulation? It seems like a little bit of a stretch. Why did you pick your particular industry, and what led you towards Koala?
Yeah, well, it was a long process. Took multiple years. I looked at a lot of different opportunities. I looked at a number of different franchises, and most of them just didn't seem like a fit. Either I didn't like the approach, or didn't want to be in a yogurt business, or run a massage studio, decent good businesses, but they just didn't seem like fits for me. And a couple of things about Koala that resonated. One was the fact that I live in North Texas, which has always been, and I think will continue to be, certainly for my lifetime and probably the next, will be really hot markets with a lot of growth. And so something related to housing and growth of commercial and residential buildings, it really made sense to me. Okay, the fundamentals are behind a business that's related to construction, even though it's a very competitive market with some big players. The other thing was when I first met some people from Koala, I was impressed by the professionalism of the team, not only the sales team, but also the founders of Koala and the sort of the core people that started the franchise. just like anything else, there are some people that are less professional than others, or people that really sound intelligent and look like they've done their homework. And so I was attracted, having been in business for nearly 40 years. I've met all kinds of people, and so I quickly sort of connected with the people behind Koala. And I started looking at the core business fundamentals, and had more confidence in what I saw than I had in some of the other things I looked at.
And it sounds like their level of professionalism is also a good support for you, especially as you're starting out in this particular industry. But I would imagine once you become an entrepreneur and a proprietor yourself, that increases your level of responsibility tenfold, exponentially.
Yeah, I think, anytime you're going to start a business that's not in an industry that you've been in your whole life and you're familiar with, there's so much uncertainty and so much fear. It's going to be hard regardless. So having partners that seemed like they were high quality and were prepared to support someone in this venture certainly reduced the risk in my mind.
Tell us more about your business and sort of the day-to-day. So it sounds pretty self-explanatory, insulation services, but maybe you could extrapolate a little bit what that means.
Sure. So Koala is a company that there are about 100 locations currently across the U.S. Essentially, the core business is to work with homeowners or builders and contractors to either install insulation in a new build or to upgrade insulation. So the most profitable part of the business is taking a truck and a trailer, rolling up to someone's house, running a big hose into their attic, and either removing old damaged insulation or just taking what's there and doubling or tripling the amount by blowing in new insulation. It's fairly simple business, that part of it. Then there's certainly new construction where you might be installing different types of insulation, batt, that's the rolled insulation most people see, or blowing in cellulose or fiberglass or spray foam. Now the commercial sort of the new build business is much more challenging in that there are lots of people chasing that business. And the builders, particularly the larger builders, it's really more about price. So it's harder to differentiate oneself. And then the last part of the business, really, which is very complex, is spray foam, and that's a chemical process that involves some expensive equipment and expensive chemicals that have to be implemented very carefully and correctly. Otherwise, you can have a lot of problems. So that's you have to have an experienced person or a well-trained person who's certified, and that's again a process where you actually spray chemicals on the roof of someone's home or on the walls, and it provides a great product. But it's very different in terms of the mechanics as well as the margins. So Koala is like operating several different businesses under one roof.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because Koala is a part of a family of companies. I saw on your website that Wallaby Windows is part of it. So would this opportunity allow you to branch into some of those other aspects of the same company?
Yeah, I think in theory. So Koala was the first brand developed by an entrepreneur. This was his second franchise concept. The first one was fleet cleaning of trucks. And so that he added the Wallaby window concept about the same time that the company was purchased by a private equity firm called Empower Brands, which has, I think, nine or 10 different brands under one umbrella. And that's, I think that's been about 6 months ago. So to really understand the synergies between the brands is something that, I think we'll come and see. I think there are a couple of examples of owners of one concept that have bought into another concept because they're all under one family. We will be having our first sort of brand-wide convention in February in Las Vegas, where really all the brands, owners of all the brands, are coming together at a common event. And I think that'll be an interesting opportunity to learn about things that might be complementary or might be interesting, and a lot of good relationships to be found.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. It would be silly for anyone to imagine that there wouldn't be some challenges, especially once you're starting in a brand new industry. What were some of the challenges that you had to work through to make your decision, and then also to get off the ground and running?
Yeah, well, I think making the decision, I mean, it's the best analogy I have is when I was young and maybe junior high, I went to a summer camp where one of the activities was rappelling off of cliffs, which turned out to be great fun and something I really enjoy doing a lot of. But if you've ever rappelled or seen it, there's a point where you're standing with the ropes between your hands, where you have to go from standing up to essentially perpendicular to the cliff to begin jumping out and going down. And intellectually, you know that all the pieces are in place, the safety people are in place, the harness is correctly on, the equipment is good, but still making yourself take that first step backwards over the cliff is incredibly difficult, despite everything you tell yourself. So it's an analogy that I've drawn many times. I mean, going through the process, looking at all of the different things, and then making the decision to make that first step is incredibly hard. And once you do it, you can't go back, right? It's the only way to go is to go with gravity, and that's kind of like starting a business. I've been particularly fortunate for a couple of reasons, in that one, my son, who graduated from college a year or two before I started this journey or made this commitment, became interested in what I was doing, and so we decided to be partners in this venture. So that, without him, I would not have made that first step, because I started to have a lot of second thoughts. But he was like, "No, we can do this. We got this done."
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to have the familial support as well. But how did you know when you were ready to go all in? So how did you know when you were ready to go perpendicular on that cliff and start rappelling down and letting gravity bring you back to earth?
Yeah, I think I've been there a couple of times, right? The first time I was really eager and anxious, and look, I've got to do something on my own. I'm just tired of sort of out of the corporate race. Had some good runs, but got to the point where I knew it was time, but I couldn't find anything that really fit me. So I ended up taking another corporate role and pursued that with a company that's growing, but still had that nagging feeling like, I'm never going to be satisfied unless I answer the call of doing something on my own. And so, I sort of doubled down on my resolve to do it. And then when I found something that I thought, may not be perfect or still had some doubts, like, this is the best thing that's talking to me, or like, this is talking to me more so than anything else. So it's time to just do it, and just, damn the doubts and damn the fears. Just, the only way through it is going through it.
Sounds like pretty good advice for anyone else who's contemplating going on this journey. Do you have any other bits of wisdom that you'd want to impart on anyone who's considering owning a franchise or becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I have a lot of things to say, probably more than we have time for, but a couple of thoughts are that, you can intellectualize it all day long and do all your homework, but at some point you just have to take really a leap of faith, because there's no assurance that you're going to be successful or not fail. And so it's just a matter of getting to that point where you're ready to take that risk. And I think you'll know it when you get there, because, when you wake up in the night in the cold sweat saying, am I really going to do this? If the next morning you're still going to do it, then you're probably ready.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing I would say, which is very obvious advice, is go find people that are in the business that have nothing to do with the franchise concept that you're looking for, and ask them if they'll tell you about what it's like. I think anybody who makes this journey gets emotionally attached to the romanticism of the upside. And I would say that most of the people that fail got so attached to, the fantasy of success that they didn't really thoroughly consider all the ways they could fail and try to overcome those. I've spent a lot of my time, now that I'm on this side of the chasm, if you will, or on down the cliff, I have really wanted to help those who are on the journey to try to decide if they want to do this. I spent a lot of time and enjoyed working with a gentleman who was with Chase Bank his entire career, and I think he's probably late 40s, early 50s, and was at a point. There was a point where the bank was changing, and he had the option to take an out package. And so, sitting across from a corporate guy like that who had never done something on his own and done something as crazy as insulation, helping answer his questions and watch him go through the thought process was a lot of fun. So I could see those wheels turning and kind of know where he was. He did make the decision. He's operating now in Phoenix, and I get a call from him about once a week. He asks, funny questions about how do you turn this on, or well, have you ever seen a rat in an attic and stuff like that.
Something that he probably wouldn't have seen, working at his desk at Chase Bank.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, if you could, you mentioned Rich LeBrun earlier. Can you please share your experience working with him and his advisory group, and just how he's helped kind of shepherd you through the process?
Sure. I have very high regards for Rich for all kinds of reasons. One of them is his patience, because if he was looking for a quick commission check from me, he was sorely disappointed. I think we worked together for a good 2 years before I closed the deal. But he never put pressure on me. He was, what he'd said to me many times is like, I'm here to help you with your journey, to see if I can be of help. He said, maybe I can't be. But he made it clear that he wanted to be a coach and a helper, and we may not end up doing something together business-wise. So it got to the point where we really, I think, both look forward to our weekly calls. We talked about a lot of things other than the nuts and bolts of the search. We talked about family and hobbies and faith and good experiences, bad experiences. And so he's a guy that I built a lot of respect for, and again, call a friend. I've turned to him a number of times since we've started this business, just to kind of check in on him and tell him where I am and like to hear his journey. So, there are thousands of franchise brokers out there. Lots of folks are great. I think it's a process of finding someone that fits, right? A good personality fit with you. I'm a slow decision maker and a thoughtful person. Rich is a great fit for someone like me who wants a low pressure engagement that goes at my pace, not his. So yeah, I can't say enough great things about Rich, and I know he's been in for a long time, and he's worked with a lot of people, and so his experience was really helpful at a time when I was looking at doing something that I had no experience doing.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great to hear, Stuart. Well, finally, how can our audience get in touch with you should they need your services?
Yeah, so my email is S-Sikes, that's S-S-I-K-E-S, at koalainsulation.com. Koala like the bear. Be happy to help out anybody who either needs insulation or wants to talk about the process of starting a business.
Oh, that's wonderful. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Stuart, for joining us today on the All In series. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and you'll be an inspiration for anyone thinking about taking a leap of faith into entrepreneurship with the franchise. We wish you so much success, and thank you to all of our viewers and listeners, and we hope you enjoyed meeting Stuart and look forward to having you join us again as we explore more stories of those who've decided to go all in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Layla.